Welcome to the History Makers Leadership Podcast. I am excited to have a special guest today. Many of you have seen her on our podcast before, Katie, who has been working at ILI for 17 years. And I'm excited to unpack with her how to walk through the process of God birthing in you a new passion, mission, and vision, and to live that out with integrity. Katie, I know it's different for you being interviewed. You're normally the interviewer, but thank you for agreeing to do this.
Thank you. I'm excited and a little bit nervous to sit in the hot seat because normally I'm asking the questions. So I feel a little bit nervous today.
Wow.
A little nervous. And it's different.
Well, for people who don't necessarily know you personally, I want to set the stage for those of you watching, the kind of leader here, because you probably only know her for brief moments here on the podcast. But Katie, as I've worked with her for the past 5.5 years, has become someone I deeply love and trust and seek wisdom from. She is a strong leader, mother. She's a disciple maker, leads small group with her husband, really invests in people, not a lip service person, like a real in your life leader. And so I just want to let you know that the person before you today that we're interviewing is a woman of character and of integrity. I'm getting choked up thinking about it.
I'm going to cry over here.
So enjoy this discussion. And for those of you who may feel a stirring for God in your heart to do something new and have that passion birthing in you, I would encourage you to take advice and wisdom from her. So Katie, first question for you is, after 17 years, you're feeling God do something new in your heart. And it's not right now. I know it's been a process and something you've really prayed through, and we'll unpack it, but what's new with you?
Oh, man. Yeah, like you said, it's definitely not been new. I've always felt a stirring for a certain path. God has blessed me so much with this place at International Leadership Institute to be able to work here, to be able to make relationships here. I mean, I have family here. You guys are closer than just coworkers. And I have legitimately worked with certain people in the organization for 17 years.
Right.
So it's very much a blessing on my life. It's a huge honor to have been here to make these relationships, and that will never change. That God had put a passion in my heart to be a leader with International Leadership Institute. It's such an honor. But along the way, I have always had a passion for fitness and for nutrition, and to view our body as a temple, both the what we put in our bodies and how we treat our bodies, our mind and emotion, all of that has always been a huge passion for me, just personally. So that's been something that I've worked to, attain in my own life.
Right. I mean, we've talked about it so often, just being coworkers side by side in their desk. I've learned so much from you just in that.
Yeah, like one day Shannon's at her desk and she's like, my shoulder's hurting. We're talking. I'm like, hey, get on the floor. Let's do this exercise together. And, I'm just so passionate about it. Like helping people become, just living their life to the fullest, the way that God has intended for us. And that's always been a passion for mine. It's just been on the side. I've taught exercise classes along the way. I've actually taught some people nutrition stuff in my life. And so it's always just been there in the back of my mind and the back of my heart. And here recently, God, over the last 6 months, he really started stirring my heart a lot about true passion and being able to spend time in the Word and spend time with him praying, and with my husband having conversations about where God was leading me and what was the next season of life for me. And I'm not saying that turning 40 in October has anything to do with this like midlife crisis moment. But just that kind of step back and assess and really dig in. God, where do you want me? And where is it that you want me to make the biggest difference with my life? I am a vessel and just wanting to be used by you. So where is it that you want me to be? So with all that, really kind of have had those conversations my husband and I have been together for, married for 16 years, but just having those conversations along the way of that's a pipe dream, working in nutrition and fitness and health. And that's just I would never really do that. That's really that's just my hobby. And, but kind of having that moment of, am I limiting myself and God and the vision? And and stepping back and having those conversations with my husband. And we kind of just looked at each other and were like, why not? Why are we not praying about that? Why are we not asking God about this? So started praying about that more, and I just felt a fire. I can't explain it, but just like a fire ignited when I started researching about, okay, what would it look like? And I came upon health coaching and some programs. I did just some initial conversations about that, and God just lit a fire in my heart. And I discovered one of the reasons, really kind of unfolded this, but one of the reasons really, I love the spiritual gift inventory. We talk about this in our History Makers podcast, our History Makers curriculum, about taking a spiritual gifts inventory and seeing what gifts you have that the Lord can use. Right. And I've been taking that test for years. I mean, as long as I've worked here, I've been taking that test. And if you've never taken that, please do. It's very insightful. But I have always really ranked high with pastor shepherding, which let's be honest, in my younger years, I was like, this is wrong. Yeah. I am not called to be a pastor. This is not what I'm supposed to do. So I struggled with that for a while. But what God really revealed to me over a long time now is that shepherding, that's what he kept saying to me, shepherding. And leading, you mentioned this, my husband and I lead small groups. I love mentoring young girls one-on-one. That has always been a passion of mine, to shepherd women into where God wants them to be, to see them grow spiritually. And it clicked. It was that moment where God was like, I'm calling you into the next season. And that season is to combine this passion that I have given you of nutrition, of health, of fitness and mental, emotional well-being with shepherding. Right. And put those together. Wow. And see. And I mean, I'm telling you, I just felt like just such passion has come over me for that. So yeah, that was a lot. I answered a lot of questions. Exciting. But that's where I am right now.
Yeah, I love it. So there's always this behind the scenes moment where you realize we're going to say yes to this. And that reality of, okay, we're going to say yes. There's no turning back. I'm sure you and Brandon had that moment. You're like, okay, this is God's will for our life. We're going to say yes to this. And so I want to unpack how you've lived that out with integrity. I mean, I've watched you live it out with integrity, and I think people watching could learn a lot about how to leave something they love well, how to share the news appropriately with integrity through a lot of prayer, as you have done. And so what was your first moment and next step when you realized, okay, I'm about to quit my job and start a new business. And I have my husband's blessing. I have God's blessing. So kind of, if you don't mind unpacking, what was that like for you to have to kind of carry the weight of, because like you said earlier, this isn't necessarily, it is a job and everything, but we are close. It is like a family here behind the scenes. So what was that like for you to unpack that moment?
Honestly, it was so scary. It was a lot of emotion. I mean, honestly, you could be at a job for 5 years and feel like that strong pull of this is too hard. I can't leave. But to be here for 17 years, and yes, I started when I was young. I was probably in my young 20s when I started here. So the people that have been here from the very beginning with me are ones that have walked through college years. They walked through getting engaged and getting married, and then we struggled to have a family, and they walked through that really hard, dark season with us. They have literally walked through every season of my adult life with me. So the thought of leaving ILI first of all, that emotion was so hard to overcome. I was so excited over here about everything God was doing. Right. But then the thought of leaving, first of all, was just really emotional for me. It's just something I've never really thought about, like actually doing something other. I thought I would be here forever. And so that was really scary. It was really emotional, really scary. And then the next thought that popped in my head was, how am I going to have these conversations? Right. I just could not imagine sitting before the people and saying, okay, I'm leaving.
Right.
That thought was so scary. And honestly, it took weeks. It took weeks before I even had the courage to initiate the conversation I needed to have with some of you know Christina Norval Trindade. They are precious. They lead our training department. I call them my Brazilian mommy and daddy because they've been here for so long, and they are Brazilian but live here in the States with us at the headquarters. But we are so close, and they're so precious to me. So they're not really supervisors; they're family.
Right.
And it was just to have that conversation, to just start the conversation was so hard. But I had to take a step back and say, this is a hard thing God is asking me to do, and He's going to give me the words. I'm like praying, please, Lord, give me the words. And I'm trusting that I'm leaning into the vision that He's called on my life. And if this is where He's calling me, and I feel so confident in that, then He's going to prepare their hearts.
Right.
He's going to prepare the organization, all those relationships, and leaning into that instead of my own fear is what it was so hard. It was so hard. And I mean, we cried, lots of tears.
I mean, I cried when you told me. I was like, oh.
So many tears, but at the same time knew that it was good.
Yeah.
And I knew.
Yeah, because I was sad, but I was also excited. It was like that weird bittersweet feeling of being really sad to lose the everyday interaction, but the blessing of knowing, I mean, because I've seen you and your passion. And so just seeing God let you live out a dream is amazing.
Yeah. Oh,
really.
I feel so humbled that He's opened this door, and something I really thought would never happen. And it speaks into that message of not limiting God for what the passions He's put on your life are there for a reason. And he may use them as a career, He may not, but to not limit God and thinking that that's just a side dream I have. Like, if there's a passion there, honestly, explore that, because God may have put it there so that He can use that for His glory. So that was, so having the conversations was really hard and really emotional, but it felt like the good hard work. It was that thing that you knew you had to overcome, but it was a good overcoming obstacle. Like, just so sweet in the end to see the conversations that bloomed because of that. The love that was expressed during that. Christina Norval have been amazing, just saying how excited they are they're very sad that we're, ending the relationship here, but we'll always be family. We'll always have each other. We'll always, and they're excited about what God's doing. And so knowing that, I leaned into that prayer first and asked God to give me the words and asked God to go before me and prepare the hearts that I want to end well here. I want to transition and finish strong and not just leave.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been weeks now since I've made that announcement, and even now, even like months before I'll leave, because I want to transition well. And I do have that space where I can do that. I know everyone can't do that in a season where they're transitioning, but God's given me that ability to do that. So I feel very blessed that I can end well here before I leave and say goodbye.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I do think that was one of the things that stood out the most, that you really prayed about and asked God for direction on how to leave well. So we're going to transition in a moment to kind of some things that you've seen throughout the years here, but I wanted to ask before we wrap up this part, what kind of practical advice would you have for someone else who feels that stirring in their heart, feels that passion, is experiencing that fear? Maybe they won't have the strong support that you have had here, but what kind of advice would you give someone who's really wrestling with a new calling and a new birthing in their heart, new passion that God's stirring up in them?
Well, I mean, I can't say enough about praying about it. You've really got to lean into prayer. I just firmly believe that when God puts something, if there's that, we call it holy discontent, there's a little discontentment, but something holy about it, to lean into that and pray about that and ask God what it is that He's trying to show you. And the next thing I would say is to look for open doors, because there's so many times when we can miss things, when God is opening a door. And if we're not praying or not seeking Him through the Word, we can so easily miss His quiet whispers and open doors that are just right in front of us. So I would say be ever mindful of the doors that God is opening and closing. If there is that holy discontent, search that and ask God why. What is going on? Why are you creating this? Is there something new you're doing? Because I firmly believe that when God has you where He wants you, there's a drive, there's a passion, there's a contentment, there's a fulfillment in what you're doing. And it can be so scary to not know where He's calling you, to not, to maybe there's having this discontent, maybe they're having these fears, but not really sure where the next step is. Like, I had such a clear calling, but even having those feelings and that wandering, God can use all of that to show you a new door. And it's just leaning in with prayer. I firmly believe He is so faithful to open your eyes when you seek Him in prayer. That's what the Bible tells us. I've seen it for my own life. And He's so faithful to respond and open our eyes. Maybe we don't see it right now, but if you ask, it says, lean in for wisdom and He'll give it to you. Ask, seek, all those things, the door will be opened. It's there in the Word for us. And if we will just lean into that, I think He will respond. I know He will respond. He's done it.
No, that's really good. It reminds me of a couple weeks ago, I was at a conference, and there was a gentleman there preaching, Steve Siemens. I believe that's his name. I'm so sorry if it's not. But he said, so often we can get God's will 100%, know exactly what His will is, but miss the timing and try to pick the fruit off the tree before it's ripe. And that really resonated with me, because I feel it can be, especially if you're in tune with the Lord and you're really seeking Him, it can be really clear what your next step is. And once we notice that and realize that, like your passion, your fire, you're excited, you can just jump the gun and move a little early and not bathe it in prayer longer and not really seek God's will on how to do it and when is His time. And that, I think, really stood out to me with you, is that you really prayed about the right time and how the process of leaving was going to look for you and for your family. I know you put your kids, a part of this decision, and really wanted to make sure you were being able to put them first and spend time with them. And so just to encourage those of you, you may have the same stirring that Katie has, and it might not be time right now. And so I would just caution you to really bathe it, like she said, in prayer, and spend time making sure you know when God's time for you to make that jump and make that decision is.
Can I say something on that?
Please do, yeah.
Because in complete transparency, I became a mother 8 years ago, and that time was a time I wrestled with, do I stay home and work from home? Do I stay home as a stay-at-home mom? And I had this wrestling in my heart for many years. 8 years of wondering, because I had another kid after that. Is this something I should just, fully lean in and be there for my kids, or should I stay? And so there's always been this like wrestling. And I have always leaned into that in prayer. Like, God, I feel this wrestling, but I feel you're not pulling me away. You're not telling me no, you're not closing this door. And if I had jumped on my own instincts, I probably would have. I would have just said, you know what? I'm going to be home with the kids. I'm going to just do my own thing.
Yeah.
Because this is, timing of being a mom and being present with them and working, and there's a hard schedule there. But I was leaning in to that season and praying, and even though there was a wrestling in my heart, God was not closing the door, and I knew it was not time for me to leave. So that, what you just said, the timing is so, I really feel like that's so important, because just because you're having wrestling heart, just because you feel there's something else, the timing,
right?
God's timing is far greater. This is our whole life, but God's timing for your purpose is far greater than you jumping the gun and just doing what you think you should be doing.
Yeah.
So it might be hard, because you might have to wait.
Yeah.
I had to wait 8 years before God finally said, okay, now it's time.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me when we were praying. I felt that prick on my heart of, this is time. Now it's time.
Yeah.
Now it's time. So I would not have been here had it been for my own, just leaning into what I wanted to do.
Right. Right. Wow. Well, that's a good word right there. So 17 years.
Yes.
I have a question for you that it might be off-putting. I'm sorry if it is, or it might catch you off guard. that you pretty much have your hands on almost every success that we've had. Like you've touched everything here, because you started when there was hardly any workers, and now we have a larger team. So you were a one-man band even for a certain season with all things communication. And I set it up like that because that means every story has come through you until maybe the past 6 months. And so is there a story of life change that it's the one that you think of most often that really, even just hearing it, transformed your life and impacted you greatly?
It's hard to narrow it down to one. It's so many. Honestly, I'll say this, one of the things that the emotion comes when I think about leaving is the internationals that I have so many relationships with. And I've even kind of reached out to a few of them to let them know, and they've had tears, and it's people that I've been connected with for so long, and truthfully feel so honored to be a part of. You guys feel this. Everyone that works here at ILI feels this great, humbling experience that they get to be a part of so many life-changing experiences around the world. And I consider them spiritual giants. They are doing the work and on the ground, and we get to see that and hear that and be a part of it. And it's a humbling experience. So that for me, just to know that I'm not gonna see that every day is very emotional. And when you ask me to think about one story, it's really hard to narrow it down. But I've always loved one of our, again, a spiritual giant for me. And she is with the Lord now, but Anne Magane is just, I love her story. And she is from Kenya. She was from Kenya. And, she had gone to a conference, an ILI event, and with David Thagana, our Africa East coordinator. And she felt the calling from the Lord there to start an orphanage. And she had a vision. She ran after it. She felt like the Lord was calling her to that. And Anne was on the cover of our Changing Lives book, which was our very first book we did with all the testimonies, stories from around the world. So full of those kind of life-changing stories. But Anne had gone to an ILI training event, and she caught the vision there. God revealed to her to start an orphanage. And through that, she started an orphanage, and she was the one they called so many countless stories of lives that she changed, but they had this one particular baby they found in a dumpster, and they called Anne to come take care of this baby in her orphanage. That baby wouldn't have gone to Anne had she not caught the vision. And it's not because of ILI. We're not the reason but she stopped for a moment to lean in, to ask God, what was the vision he had for her life. And I think that's what's so special to me about the ILI training, the History Makers curriculum, is that there's a moment where people can pause and say, okay, God, what is the vision that you have for my life? I think a lot of times we don't ask that question, and we're going through life thinking that, well, there's other leaders, other people have a vision. God's called them to pastor or be an evangelist. And so we don't ask that question, but Anne paused long enough to ask God, and he revealed that to her. And then look at all the lives that changed because of that. And now her story, she's with the Lord, but her story still lives on. And her life is still changing lives. Her story is so impactful. And even sitting in that book, living in that book forever, could potentially change lives and impact people forever. So I love her story, and just that thread of how God uses a moment where just pausing to ask him, what is it that you want me to do, Lord? And I pray that if you're listening to this today and you've never asked that, like, what is your vision for my life, God? This is a moment, this is a calling for you to stop and ask him, spend time in prayer and ask him what it is, the vision that he has specifically for your life that he's calling you to do, because it may look different than what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And we just maybe didn't pause and ask.
Yeah.
So Anne is one particular story that stands out, that will always be a huge impact for me.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you've written all of the books, so it's pretty powerful that first cover story on the book was so transforming. And I mean, I think I share her story with a lot of people, just because it is, you never know what God might stir in your heart at an ILI conference. And we've talked and unpacked it before, about, even just being called to be a mother and a wife. Sometimes we overlook some of those smaller things that really are large. We call them small because it seems like it's what we're supposed to do as women, but that's God's vision for us too, and He can help even clarify some of the everyday mundane things that we're doing, and put some purpose and passion behind that for us as we unpack it.
I think mothers don't ask that question enough too. You're just a mom. I hear that. I'm just a mom. I'm just a mom. I've heard that even like last week. I heard that somebody was asking them to fill out their profession, and she said, "I'm just a mom." I was like, "No, you're not just a mom.
Yeah.
Just a mom. You have, or just a dad. Like that is full of vision God has called you to. And this is another calling. Sit down and ask, what's the specific purpose you've called me to as a mom?
Yeah.
What's the vision you have for me, God? That's huge,
Absolutely. So practically, what do you think is maybe like a leadership skill, or there's probably a lot there too, but of the 8 core values, you live them all out. I see that in your life, but is there an 8 core value that really changed the trajectory of your life, that helped you think, or even just see, wow, I'm going to focus on this value. Maybe it was missing in your life when you first started here, but you've seen that value have some transformational impact on your life.
The first one that comes to mind is visionary leadership, because I definitely, coming in as a young 20s in college still, did not feel myself as a leader, did not think, I led, I would lead a Bible verse for the cheerleading team in high school or something simple, but I would not have considered myself as a visionary leader. That was definitely not something. I was very, I had my eyes opened when I came here, and that when I went through the training the first time and having to sit down and write out vision or goal setting, any of these things, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is like beyond my scope. I don't know what I'm doing here. But it's just, that had led into so many. I'll never forget writing my first vision statement. I went to, I had sat with other things, but the very first time I actually attended a full History Makers conference was in Czech Republic. And I sat during that session on vision, and I was so intimidated. I was probably 23, 24, so intimidated. And I kind of felt like a chameleon for a minute. I was a poser. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just kind of following along and like, okay, I'm going to pray about this, but I don't really feel like I'm supposed to be doing this. Just felt so inadequate in that moment. And I felt like everyone around me was like writing frantically because they knew exactly what God was calling them to. And I just remember feeling like I felt so lost and so confused. And I felt like I was just writing. But that was the moment I think God began the work in my heart to say, let's think about this. Let's open the door. Why have you not opened this door? Why are you not thinking about being a visionary? Why can't I use you as a visionary leader?
Right.
I think I didn't feel adequate. I just didn't feel like that was my calling. So after doing that, and then consequently the years after, I have been in various conferences and taught sessions, and God just started to impress on my heart that He was able to use me because I'm not good enough. Sure. I'm not adequate. Sure. But God can still use all that.
Right.
And I've not been perfect over the years, and I've not attained all the core values, but God has used that so much, visionary leadership, to show me that one's a little outside of my scope. Sure. But He can use that and call me into being a visionary leader, even when I don't feel like that's personally something that I'm naturally drawn to be.
Right.
So,
wow, that's good. I really appreciate that. I would have seen you as a visionary leader. I think I incredibly appreciate that because so often young people have that exact same experience. A conference I was at last year, a young girl came up saying she didn't know what God's vision for her life was. And we spent time praying in that. And without even realizing that about you, I said the same thing that you've said. I said, God's opening this door for you. Start praying into that. Ask Him, these questions. And He definitely can use you as a leader in some capacity. We all can be used in that way because we all have influence, But yeah, I would have never pegged you as a non-visionary leader.
Oh. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's definitely God then, because that internally, I mean, it's funny because we just think of ourselves as we view ourselves so differently than everyone else does, but it's just evidence to me that God has used me despite myself.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
he does that for us.
Yeah.
Well, Katie, any final encouragement or words for those tuning in?
I think I just want people to lean in. It's so fun to see how God can change your trajectory depending on the season you're in. You may have been somewhere for 17 years and then all of a sudden God's calling you to a different season, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you may not feel equipped, or you may not feel that defines you, or you may be defined by what you have been for so much time or so long. Or maybe you're like me and you're about to hit 40 and you're like, it's too late. But that's limiting God. So my challenge is to lean in and ask and be okay with change, because it's in the change and in the scary and in the uncertain that God can mold and do the biggest work. I really believe that he's got a vision for every single person that loves him and that is asking. He wants to use you.
Yeah.
And it may look different in different seasons of life, but the beautiful thing is that just means there's a whole nother field ripe for the harvest for you, that there's a whole nother place God is willing to open the door and say, I'll use you here. Even if you feel like you're not ready, even if you feel like you're not equipped or not able or doesn't define you, he can still use you if you're a willing heart, a willing vessel, and leaning into prayer. That's my biggest challenge for everybody listening.
That's great. I appreciate that. I'm sure many of you watching appreciate that advice as well. And we've talked a lot about visionary leadership, our 8 core values here that we offer at the International Leadership Institute through our training events. And so I just wanted to offer you that. We have an online platform that is free. It's on demand. We will include that below with the link for you guys to step into that community. And then also, we do have the visionary leadership session by itself online. It's called at the website iliteam.org/vision. And I believe that's correct. But if not, you can check it down in the show notes below. And I encourage you guys, go through one of those next steps. Pray, as Katie shared with you. Seek God. What is he stirring within you? Maybe some of you do not feel in any way led to leave where you're at. That you're certain that you're where God has you, and that's awesome. And so I would encourage you, if you're watching this and you feel maybe like a holy discontent Katie was sharing, but you know you're where God's called you, maybe spend some time praying and asking God to rebirth that passion and that fire and that vision that you had at the beginning of whatever season that you're in life right now, because sometimes that fire can wane and we really need to fuel that. And the Holy Spirit, who sends us the fuel from God to continue living out the vision and mission he has for us. So I hope you've enjoyed today. Don't forget to like, share, send this to somebody. We're encouraged by all of you who are liking and watching and commenting. So I just want to keep encouraging you to do that. And we hope to see you next time on the podcast.